Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. I'm your host Paul, I'm an alcoholic. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and this is episode 18. I want to tell everyone thank you for all the support we've been getting. We've had a lot of different comments. We've had a lot of people send different talks in, different suggestions for different shows, and we really appreciate all that. Our email address is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. And we also we're streaming on several of the major streaming podcast platforms: Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and we've been getting some attention on those too. So we appreciate everybody. Tonight we have the special guest coming all the way from New Jersey, Chris S. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great, Paul. It's going great.
Nice. And for those listening, me and Chris, this is. Let's see, what is this? Probably the 9th episode. We're going over what we're calling an adequate presentation for the step. It's a guide for sponsorship, and tonight we're going over step 10. It's been great, Chris. I really appreciate you, buddy.
No problem. I'm really enjoying this podcast, and I want to thank you for what you do, Paul. So what happened with me in the early days? I was going to a lot of meetings. A lot of them were discussion meetings, and discussion meetings can be good, they can be bad. Your groups can be enthusiastic, they can be laissez-faire. But what was going on with me was I was really a hardcore alcoholic, right? I was the type of alcoholic that needed to be detoxed if I started drinking. I'm the guy that passes out at your party, parks, runs over your bushes, parking at your house, insults your mother. Just the worst of the worst kind of drunken slob. And I show up in meetings where people weren't 10% as bad as I was when they gave up drinking, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like looking around wondering, what the heck am I doing here? These bunch of disco drunks. Oh, you had a little bit too much to drink at the Christmas party and your boss yelled at you and that's why you're in AA? Or you had a DUI and you're in AA? None of that stuff would have tapped my brakes until I was absolutely at the pathetic last ditch, ready to die state. And, I'm not criticizing anybody that comes in at any point in time. Yeah. I'm just saying that I felt like I was so much worse than anybody at these meetings. I just didn't think that it was set up to be able to help me. Wow. And what happened was somebody gave me a set of tapes. Somebody gave me a set of recovery tapes early on, and it was transformational for me because it explained to me, first of all, what alcoholism was. I wasn't learning that in the meetings. Yeah. A lot of times you're not going to learn that in the meetings, what it is, because they'll tell you things like, well, nobody ever gets in here by mistake. Oh, a heck of a lot of people get in here by mistake. Somebody will say alcoholism is like being pregnant. You can't be a little bit alcoholic. Oh, they are very wrong. There's a scale of alcoholism. Some of us are much worse than others. Yeah. And I was hearing just all this stuff that didn't make any sense and was completely wrong and came from irresponsible treatment centers. That's what I was hearing in these meetings. So when all of a sudden I get a hold of this set of recovery recordings, and it just my whole perspective on what alcoholism was and what the solution for alcoholism was changed.
Right.
So a lot of times if I'm working with new people, I will encourage them to listen to things like your show, Paul.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be depth and weight to whoever I've seen. I know 90% of the people that you have on the podcast are friends of mine,
Yeah.
and I know that there's depth and there's weight in what they're sharing. So you being an instrument to get that information and that storytelling and that experience, to get it out there to people who can find it and listen to it, I think is transformational. And of course, I'm really supportive of like what you're doing right now with these podcasts.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's one of those situations where like I was involved in a lot of like, just go to meetings and don't drink kind of recovery for a while, and I didn't even realize it, and what happened was I was like, I've talked about it several times on the show. I was 4 or 5 years sober, and I had a lot of great friends and a lot of great people on my side and all this, and we had a lot of great relationships, but I had, resentments and stuff the size of Mount Everest and had no solution for it, right? It was, I was getting told to just go to a meeting, just do this, and like, so whenever I found all this, I was like, man, like there's so much stuff out there that's, not necessarily the program Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's get this out there. I feel like it's almost a responsibility to do it, right? And so it really means a lot when you say that.
So real quick, I'll speak on the 3 legacies: the legacy of recovery, the legacy of unity, and the legacy of service.
Yeah.
Those are 3 legacies, and a lot of times people engage in one of the legacies, which is unity, which is meetings.
Yeah.
And they're going to expect that one legacy to do what the 3 legacies promises, which is recovery. And that's probably not going to happen. If you've gone down the scale with alcoholism, if you've honestly wanted to quit many times and found you couldn't, or when you pick up a drink, you usually get drunk just about every time, if not every time. If you've hit that level, meeting attendance is going to create a tentative, sober environment. For however long it creates it for you. What your job is going to be in that sober environment is to come to terms with the recovery program, because it's the recovery program that's going to treat your alcoholism. The meetings aren't going to treat your alcoholism. They're at best, they're going to create a sober environment and a fun place to hang out and date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not going to, man. It's not going to fix the depths of delusion that you're living in. It's not going to fix the anxiety. It's not going to fix the resentment.
Yeah.
It's not going to fix the just being uncomfortable with yourself and your environment in all kinds of different situations. That emotional unmanageability. The meetings are not barely going to tap the brakes on that stuff.
Yeah.
So am I a meeting? Listen, I love meetings. Do not get me wrong. I did the math once, Paul, and I came up with 14,000 meetings I've been to.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. So I love the meetings.
Yeah.
But I know what they're for. I know what they will accomplish. I'm not going to expect them to do what they're not designed to do. They're not designed to recover you from alcoholism.
Yeah.
The 12 steps are. And I'll make that really, really clear. I'm about to get a brand new sponsee. This Saturday, somebody's getting out of treatment, and they've been given me as a contact person, and I'm expected to take them to a meeting that night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
nice.
Yes, I'm going to definitely do that. But you can bet I'm going to be giving the individual information on what alcoholism is and what the solution to alcoholism is. Yeah. I'm just going to be doing that. I'm not going to be saying, meet me at the Looney Nooney and become a coffee maker and, a no-show GSR. I'm just not going to do that because this is life and death sometimes for people, this is life and death, and I'm not going to play games with them, and just tell them, go to 4 meetings a week or something. It's just, that's like trying to stop a semi with a cobweb if you're in real trouble with alcoholism.
Yeah. It's like what the analogy you used about the doctor when you was talking about how the meeting is the waiting room, right, and the procedure is the 12 steps, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, it's good stuff.
It really is.
Yeah, man. It's good.
So Paul, tonight we are on step 10. I want to preface it by saying this. There's a couple things that are true. One of them that's true is to get the most out of step 10, you really should have taken and addressed the first 9 steps. Okay. Another thing that's true is as you're moving through the first 9 steps, you can look ahead into steps 10 and step 11 and start to practice the things that make sense to you. And that's absolutely appropriate as well. So step 10, if I was to be forced to explain step 10 in one sentence, I would probably say something like this. Step 10 is continuing to stay mindful and engaged and contemporaneous with the first 9 steps. Nice. In other words, we've been given spiritual exercises that have been transformational. If you've really paid attention to and to the best of your ability taken the first 9 steps, you are going to be your spirit is going to be awakened. Your recovery is going to start to cement itself in. Your recovery from alcoholism, the early recovery, and that's just like going through the first 9 steps. What step 10 is asking us to do is do it in real time. Apply the lessons of the first 9 steps and the exercises of the first 9 steps in real time as they're appropriate and available.
Yeah.
It's telling us that this is a way of life. This 12 steps is a way of life. It's not like you're going to a college course and you're going to study like crazy and you're going to pass the final. Alcoholism is a chronic illness. It's not an acute illness, it's a chronic illness, which means it's going to have to, the recovery process is going to have to continue to be engaged in for a lifetime. One of the things I used to hear in the first year all the time was, I just quit drinking today. Okay. Now, yes, we live in the day. Hell, we live in the now. If we're really paying attention, we're going to try to live in the now. But we quit drinking for good and for all. And if you're not ready to do that, you're probably not ready to do these steps, and you're probably not ready to recover.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hang out in the meetings. God bless you. I'll be your friend. I'll give you the meeting book and circle all the meetings you should go to. Be part of the fellowship. It may dawn on you, in year 2 in the fellowship that this is a serious thing and it should be, you should start to do your job. That's cool. But if I'm working with a new guy, if that's their attitude, that they just want to get out of the jackpot, they just want the heat off for today, it's going to be very, very hard for me to really commit to, to engagement with them as a sponsor or a spiritual advisor. I'm not going to be convinced that, they really want or need this thing.
Yeah. I get it.
So anyway, let's do some reading. This is halfway down the page 84 in Alcoholics Anonymous. This thought brings us to step 10. What thought brings us to step 10? Well, the promises will always materialize if we work for them. The 9th step promises that you see up on the wall all the time. So if we work for them, they will materialize. So with that thought, it brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory. This is a step that does not have a lot of instructions in it, Paul. So it's kind of easy to just ask the person that I'm working with to bring over their big book and highlight the instructions. That's like the first thing I want somebody to do: highlight the instructions, because there's a lot of promises, there's a lot of stories in here, there's a lot of examples, there's a lot of philosophical recovery thought. What I think is probably more important than anything else is the instructions. So I'll ask them to highlight: we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any mistakes as we go along. All right, so that's step 4 and basically step 9. You've learned how to do that. You've experienced the 4th and the 5th step, the 8th and the 9th step. What you're to do is you're to apply those principles. When you have caused harm, you make amends. When you get resentful or remorseful or anxious, inventory. Use the inventory. I think in the beginning, written inventory needs to be the way to do it. You need to do a written 10-step inventory until you don't have to do a written inventory anymore. Until it becomes so much of a working part of your experience that you can move through it consciously.
Nice.
But I think until that happens, I think it's a good idea to be putting it on paper.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that idea. That's good.
So we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So this is where it gives us permission to start to use these principles even before we finished our amends, which is fine. I think this gives us power. I think applying step 10 gives us additional power to maybe finish up the last of our 9th step amends. I've seen that happen in my own experience and the experience of others. So those are instructions. What is that? A couple of sentences.
Yeah.
I love the economy of this thing. Now he's gonna start to talk about some promises. At least one. He says we've entered the world of the spirit. So the first 9 steps bring about a spiritual awakening. We enter the world of the spirit, the 4th dimension of reality, the consciousness of the presence of God. What Bill asks us to do is ask ourselves what these spiritual terms mean to us. I think that's in We Agnostics somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So what does the world of the spirit mean to you? Because that's what's going to be important. We have to own this stuff, Paul. This isn't like Scientology or something where they tell you exactly what you need to think and believe. You need to own this stuff because it's that important. Yeah. So what do these spiritual principles mean to you? What does the world of the spirit mean to you, Paul?
Yeah, it's one of the service. In a lot of different ways. It's I like the terms a spirit of service, showing, just making a contribution, right? I really like, what does it say? Or place in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. That's a part of it. There's all kinds of stuff. I think that at the end of the day, it's really about just how can I show up and make a contribution, right? And what's keeping all that from taking place, whether it's fear or resentment or whatever, right? So, I could talk about it for a while, but it's just, to getting out of the thinking mind and getting into the essence of just, living from the heart and being of service, right?
I really like the way you describe that. That may not be the exact way I would describe it, but it's your experience, right? And you're right. You're absolutely right about the service ethic that comes out of in the world of the spirit. We start to recognize we're not the only people here, and other people need help, and we try to be helpful. Yeah. And you're recognizing that the thinking mind, the self-consciousness that we must recover from, starts to not be as important as some of the spiritual principles and spiritual experience. So, I love the way you describe that, and I think each of us is going to describe the world of the spirit in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. It says our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So that's our function. We grow in understanding, Paul, because we're freeing ourselves of the delusion. We're freeing ourselves of the alcoholic perspective, which is just so incorrect. And our effectiveness, I can't tell you how effective I am in my life today. It's ridiculous how effective I am. And I work about 20% as hard as I did when I was not effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Like we're not wasting time because we're much more focused and we see things as they really are, and we can make better decisions, and we can use the instinct of intuition to help us when we face indecision, and we can really become effective. Like if I was to list my accomplishments, when I retired at night every night, I wouldn't even believe them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, we do grow in understanding. We do grow in effectiveness, and that really is our purpose.
Yeah.
This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. So what should continue for our lifetime? The practice is step 10, and I would say the practice is step 11 and 12 also.
Yeah.
And where it's necessary, a full-blown run through the steps. You know what I mean? We can get spiritually bogged down. So it should continue for our lifetime. Now, this next sentence, this is also an instruction, and I want you to think about how many times these things have been brought up by Bill as as what we need to recover from. It says here, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Continue to watch for them. So be mindful of them. We have a course of action to move us through these so that they can be overcome. Doesn't mean that they're not going to creep back in, but this is a real-time approach to when we get selfish, when we get dishonest, when we get resentful, and when we have fear or anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, where did we first see that? We first saw that really in step 1, but in step 3, it broke it down. Yeah. Step 4, we did an inventory of it. Step 5, we admitted it. Step 6 and 7, we became willing to have our selfishness, our dishonesty, our resentment, and fear removed, and we humbly asked for them to be removed. In step 8 and 9, we made direct amends to the people in the institutions that this selfishness, this dishonesty, this resentment, and this fear caused harm. That's how important it is. So that's, look at it this way. Is it possible those things are our alcoholism?
Yeah, self, right? Yeah.
Yeah, is that possible? Because Bill keeps bringing us back to this, that this is what needs to be addressed. He's not saying, don't go into the pub. Yeah. He's not saying don't let him smoke, don't let him snort cocaine at your house. He's not saying any of that stuff. He's telling us that we need to watch. We have to continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when these crop up, and remember, we means you, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So I want all that highlighted if I'm working with somebody. Yeah. And if resentment, if fear, if dishonesty or selfishness crop up, we immediately ask God to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately. So in the early days, I'll ask somebody I'm working with to become friends with, somebody else that's like in the same period of time that they are. If they're in their first year, become friends with some other people that are in their first year and get in immediately. And I don't want to be the immediately for everybody. Okay, I sponsor so many people. If I was the immediately, my phone would never stop. But get somebody that you can call and do this until you don't have to do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to call anybody up anymore and say I'm resentful. If I start to get resentful, I start to apply all this stuff, and I move away from it. And I put it so far in the corner that it can't do any real damage. But when you're early on, if you're a new sponsee or new to the steps, I want you to have it immediately and make amends quickly. Now, these 10-step amends, they're not like a 9-step amends. A 9-step amends, you go to somebody, I may never be able to overcome alcoholism if I don't stop. A 10-step amends is immediate and it's specific. You make amends for the harm. You don't have to get into your alcoholism. You don't have to ask a bunch of questions or make an appointment or any of that stuff. It's real time. It's reactive. This 10-step stuff is reactive. I'm going to react by making direct amends as soon as I possibly can. Why do I do that, Paul? Because an unmade amends corrupts my spiritual condition. That's why I'm the one that suffers from the unaddressed amends. I've learned that, over the course of years, that's true in my case. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and obviously, and a lot of times, it's like blatantly obvious. Like, man, I gotta fix this, right? It's like, it's so uncomfortable. You know how it is when you did something, you realize, like, man, I shouldn't have did that. How it comes.
Yeah, yeah, and if you don't make amends quickly, what's going to happen? You're going to be thinking about it and obsessing about it and trying to figure out how to minimize it so you actually don't have to make amends. And you're playing all these games.
Yeah. And in the beginning, it was like my norm. I was just so, restless here. My restless, irritable, and discontent was just, all the time, and then, but after you got some time and you get unblocked, you're used to feeling good, so like when it comes, like, it's so obvious, like, man, I got to do something about this, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Then we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. We're always being directed to help people. If you want to know what Alcoholics Anonymous was in its first 5 to 10 years, read the chapter Working with Others. It's all about getting out there and being of help. So that permeates the literature here and it permeates the program. We're really supposed to be helpful all the time. I was helpful in a number of ways. I'm trying to get somebody a partial scholarship at a treatment center today. I made arrangements to meet a new guy when he gets out. At work, I probably did 13 things I didn't need to do because I knew it would be helpful for people. Nice. I come home, I do all kinds of stuff around the house, so that my wife doesn't need to do it. I mean, I could go on and on and on about becoming helpful. It's become a working part of my mind. It's like chopping wood and carrying water now. It's just what I do. Right. I don't have to motivate myself to be helpful. It's my nature now, and I'm really, 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 really glad of that. So here's some more promises. We've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. This guy, Tattoo Larry, he's one of my buddies from back when. Joe Hawk introduced me to him, and we did a workshop together up at the Wilson House in 2001 or something, right? And Tattoo Larry was brilliant. I was on the phone with him, and I was telling him about, these people. I'm really, I'm upset with them. I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to do that, and I'm arguing, and trying to make my point. He goes, Chris, if you're still fighting anything, you have not recovered from alcoholism. And I said, it was like, whoa, it was like an acid moment. Whoa, whoa, he's right.
Oh man,
He's right.
I don't like hearing
I
that.
still have all kinds of fights going on out there,
Yeah,
and today I can honestly tell you, I don't have any fights, Paul.
yeah. Nice.
I'm not fighting with anybody anymore.
Mm.
Certainly not fighting with alcohol.
Mm.
For by this time, sanity will have returned. Why did sanity return? Because our spirit is awakened and we see things as they really are. And that's what sanity is. Seeing things as they really are. The insane see things as they are not. So yeah, sanity has returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we'll recoil from it as if from a hot flame. And this is true for me. If somebody's pouring out shots at a Christmas party or something and they push one over at me, that I will have the same reaction as I would a rattlesnake. I'm not going to grab it. You know what I mean? It's just not going to grab it.
Yeah.
Or a scorpion or something. I'm going to recoil from it as if from a hot flame, and I'm not going to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, because I see things clearly. I'm going to see that is poison that will create an awful illness in my life.
Yeah.
Just that one shot could make me so sick that I could die.
Yeah.
And I recognize that today because that's true, Paul.
Yeah.
That's true for me. If I took that one shot, it might start the craving, and the craving would take me into who knows where. You can't even predict. So yeah, it's a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we'll find that this has happened automatically. We'll react sanely and normally. And yes, it has happened automatically because we've woken up. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has begun in us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's absolutely true. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Paul, I believe we get released from alcohol. I believe we do the spiritual work, and God, the Spirit, the power greater than yourself, releases you from alcohol. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
Hasn't it been yours?
It has. I was just sitting here thinking about when you were talking about how you would, recoil from it like a hot flame, and you said just like it would be, like I wouldn't pick up a rattlesnake, right? In the beginning, like in early recovery, you'll follow those, you'll have an emotional reaction to something and just turn it into just a crazy madman, right? And you just follow it down a little rabbit hole, and then you sit there and obsess on it, right? Well, that stuff doesn't really it doesn't happen anymore, right? Thank God, right? This is my experience. This is exactly what it's saying. Yeah.
I've never had single malt scotch.
Yeah.
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 One shot couldn't hurt me. That's insane thinking. And if you're awake, you're not going to have that insane thinking.
What is it on page 37? It says the lack of proportion and the ability to think straight.
Think straight. Yeah. So it does not exist for us. What does not exist? The problem of alcohol. Yeah. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. This is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Right. So how do we keep in fit spiritual condition? I think the most important way that I could explain to someone I'm working with how to stay in fit spiritual condition, I'm of course going to say meetings, service, sponsorship. I'm of course going to say that, but I'm also going to say the spiritual disciplines of step 10 and 11. Amen. Start to practice them. You'll practice them really crappy at first. You'll miss days, you'll forget things, but just start to practice. Yeah. If you wanted to build muscles, you wouldn't just go to the gym once. Yeah. You'd start to go consistently.
Yeah.
And then you can actually build muscles if you're consistent enough at the gym.
Right.
You'll build spiritual muscles if you're consistent enough with these practices.
That's how you get fit, right? You practice
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Our spirit needs the exercise too.
Yeah.
So here's a warning. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. It's more than easy. It's I gotta tell you, there's a beginners meeting I go to on a Monday night. I went to it for 30 some years, Paul, and you will see 5 people raise their hand. They're brand new. They just gave up booze. They're getting their 24-hour chip, whatever. And every single Monday, there's 4 or 5 people with their hands up. And there's consistently 100 people in this meeting. What does that say?
Yeah.
It says that they're not staying. Not everybody is staying. So it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. It's probable you're going to let up on the spiritual program of action.
Yeah.
How much do you want to survive? How much do you want to overcome alcoholism? How free do you want to be?
Yeah.
Those are questions I'm going to be asking somebody that's new, because I don't want them to be somebody that came around for 60 days and you never see them again. I want to be very, very clear that this is a way of life. And if it doesn't become practiced and disciplined, your chances of surviving alcohol decrease proportionally. So it says we're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol's a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So think about this, Paul. You know what a reprieve is? You're on death row. Okay, you're on death row, and your lawyers and your family are desperately calling the governor because tomorrow at midnight you're being put to death, and they're trying to get a reprieve. So everybody is fighting like crazy to get you a reprieve so that you're not put to death at midnight tomorrow night, and all of a sudden you get a reprieve. Now, that means you won't be put to death right now, but you're still a walking dead man.
Wow.
You understand?
Yeah.
So we have a daily reprieve based on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, but we must never forget we are walking dead men.
Yeah. Yeah, it was told to me.
We have been given a reprieve.
Yeah, they told me. Yeah, they said it was a state of execution. Yeah, that's what they told me.
Yeah. Right. I don't particularly want to be executed today.
No.
So it's up to me to participate in the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Now that I know that, if I drink again, it's going to be my responsibility because I didn't do these things. I knew I had to, or I was going to drink again, or probably drink again. So now it's my responsibility. When I was drinking and crashing cars and getting slapped by women and all that stuff, I wasn't really responsible because I was caught up in something that was much larger than me. But I've been given a reprieve now. I'm in a safe position. I'm not fighting it. I've been released. But to stay that way, I need to live a certain way. And I need to put work into it.
Yeah, the maintenance, yeah.
Something alcoholics hate, work.
So true.
Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. So what are we supposed to do every single day? We're supposed to carry the vision of God's will. God's will is what's the right thing to do? What's the helpful thing to do? What's the compassionate thing to do?
Yeah.
What's the charitable thing to do? That's the vision of God's will. This book talks about vision a lot.
It does.
There's a lot of vision work to be done in this particular book.
It always goes back to kind of like the ideals. I always think of my ideals whenever I think of vision, right?
How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. So Paul, what thoughts must go with you constantly? how may I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. In the vision of God's will. So are you going to be on top of this at every single moment of the day? I want to tell you that if you put 5 minutes into this, you're probably doing better than most people.
I hear you.
But
It's so true.
but we got to be awake, and we got to try.
Yeah.
We got to try to do this stuff. If we have a deep willingness inside and a commitment to do this, and we participate, we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah.
We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. What's the proper use of the will? Bringing God's vision into our life, and thy will, not mine, be done. That going with us constantly.
Yeah, my mantra. I've had a mantra over this last couple of weeks, and I'll get one of my guys and share it with them. This is God's universe. We're just here to help. How can we help, right?
That's perfect, because they always allow us the latitude to put this into our own words.
Yeah.
So and again, remember I said we've got to own this.
Mm-hmm.
So you owned what you just said.
Yeah.
That's yours.
It works,
And that's the best way to do this thing. This is a personal recovery program, and it's a spiritual recovery program.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual recovery program, which means leaving room for God, leaving room for the Spirit. So as much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. So that's really step 10. The God consciousness comes after we start practicing these principles and exercises, and we develop this sixth sense. What is the sixth sense? He's basically saying this God consciousness, the consciousness of the presence of God, the consciousness that we're not doing this on our own, and we need power. We need power from God, from the Spirit, and we're participating in the best possible spiritual climate for that power to manifest when we're practicing step 10.
Yeah, and I try. That's something I try to talk about on a pretty regular basis when I go to the meetings around this area. Like I shared before, there's a lot of recovery houses around here, and there's, I don't think it gets talked about enough. Like, talking about power, tapping into this power, God conscious, this vital sixth sense, right? For me, like, there's something that comes, there's like a quality that comes with just thinking about that. Like, wow, tapping into this power, what does that even look like, right?
Yeah.
If we're just, if we don't understand that, we don't understand that we're blocked and that we have to find this power, then you're kind of missing the boat, right? You just think it's about fellowship.
Oh, there's no doubt. Jumping ahead to next week, step 11 is about starting with power.
Yeah.
Being with power all day long and ending with power.
Nice.
That really is what step 11 is. So step 10 is about recognizing the roadblocks that are going to interfere with the transmission from the power.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, which was those areas, what does it say? Resentment, right? What does it say? I'm looking for it now. Fear. Is it selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear?
Exactly. Those come up again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's really where the battle lines are drawn with our alcoholism. That's, so we can't stop that from happening, but we can address it with spiritual principles on an ongoing basis.
Nice.
And what that'll do is that'll just change our character. That'll change our spirit. When I showed up, Paul, when I showed up to the rooms, my spirit was broken.
Yeah.
I had a broken spirit. And if you would have hurt as many people as I hurt, especially the people I cared about and were close to me and loved me, if you would have done the damage I did, in those relationships, you would have come in with a broken spirit too. And I was really good about pretending everything was okay and having a smile on my face. But inside I had a crushed spirit.
Yeah.
And all the practice, the meetings did not do this for me, but the practice of these principles, what they did is they really did heal my spirit and allow my spirit today to soar unburdened with Chris.
Yeah.
Chris interferes in the spirit much less than he used to.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if they could bottle a pill that would heal your spirit, it would knock every drug off the market, and we have something that works.
Yeah.
How much gratitude does that engender? You know what I mean?
Amen. Yeah. I like how you what really stood out during this was you was talking about doing the 10th step on paper until you get more familiar with it. As an example, I just had a guy just did some step work over this weekend, and yesterday he called me. He didn't even realize that he was doing a 10th step, but he called me, because his head was on fire, and he was sharing something that was going on. And then I've gotten him doing a nightly review too. So, whenever he'd sent his nightly review over and he didn't put it on there, and it was just one of those situations where I could see how it would kind of bring some more light to the situation if I got him to start writing this stuff down.
Yeah. If you write out your 10th step every night, you're right. If you've gotten to the point where you can consciously consciously address all of this stuff in real time and stay spiritually fit, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. I've gotten so much from all these. I appreciate what you've been doing for us and appreciate what you do. That's cool that you got a new sponsee. You're going to be meeting next week, huh? That's cool. At the treatment center.
Yeah. So a really cool coincidence. A good friend and sponsee of mine. His name is JJ. He lives up in Connecticut. I've invited him down for Saturday because I booked a Saturday speaker meeting at a local treatment center, and so this guy's first meeting out of treatment, he's going to hear JJ, and this you want to talk about a spiritual soldier. He's gonna hear the war stories from a spiritual soldier.
Nice.
This guy has started meetings up there and worked with people I probably couldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. He's an absolute trooper, and I love him. And this guy's going to get a chance his first night out of treatment. And he's going to hear JJ.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you go to the treatment pretty much every week, right?
I do a big book talk, and this is really interesting for me. I do a big book talk at this treatment center, and they all tell me I'm their favorite speaker. I don't know, but
Nice.
but it's a lecture really. You know how the big book says there's no lectures to be endured.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in a treatment center, there's lectures to be endured, and I try to make the lecture as interesting as possible. But I'll take a step, I'll take a paragraph, I'll take a chapter. Whatever I'm inspired by that day, I will turn that into a recovery Zen talk or whatever, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
And it seems to be really, really helpful for these people. But there's a few things I always cover. One is, what is alcoholism? The other is, what is the solution? And no matter how many times I talk there, that is part of my talk. And then I'll branch out into something that I hope they're going to find interesting. I really try to be interesting. Recovery is not boring. You know that, Paul.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah, we go to every Monday we go to a treatment center near my house, and I do the same thing. I always talk about. It's always I always think about how important it is for those guys to be able to identify. It's like speak to something that speaks to or speak with something that speaks to their heart. It's like, wow, I can relate to every bit of that.
I asked for hands a couple of weeks ago. I asked for hands. How many of you have been in? How many of you have gone to AA? And 80% of the hands go up, right? The other people go to NA or whatever.
Yeah.
And I basically say, if you did it right, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Do not buy into the lie that it's not for you. It doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not helpful for you. Don't buy into that lie, because if you haven't actually taken the 12 steps, you haven't done AA.
Yeah.
I don't care if you've gone to a meeting every night for 40 years.
Yeah.
If you haven't done the 12 steps, you have no clue what Alcoholics Anonymous even is.
Amen. Yeah. So true. And I'll tell you, I always ask a series of questions, show of hands, at the beginning of each session. And I always ask, I say, who in here has ever attempted or ever worked any 12-step program, right, and stayed sober over a year? Right, and you always get like two or three people. And then the next question I always say is, who in here has ever worked any 12-step program, stayed sober over a year, and worked another person through the 12 steps? And I've only seen in the last 2 years, I've only seen one person raise his hand to that. It's like,
come on. Listen, you want the secret to long-term sobriety?
Yeah.
The secret is usually up on the wall. We're not hiding it under a rock, buddy. Again, how it works is the most overread, least understood piece of AA writing.
Yeah, it's so funny. So true. Yeah. Well, cool, Chris. I appreciate you, man. You got any plans this weekend? You got any big plans?
No, I don't. Just meeting up with the new guy, and a family comes over on Sunday. Nice. Yeah, here's the funny thing, Paul. I've got the type of life I wouldn't have even wanted when I was drinking.
Amen.
I wouldn't have thought it was going to be valuable. Having a family and grandchildren all around, and owning a home. Being burdened with a home and burdened with family, having people all over in my house. I wouldn't even. That's the greatest joy of my life today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm like the elder statesman of my family.
That's awesome. That's cool, man. I get it, man. I completely get it. I always tell people, like, the guy I am today, I would have hated me. The person I was when I walked in would have hated me. It's like, come on.
Absolutely.
Dude. And well, cool, Chris. I appreciate you, man. And we are going to be, for the listeners, we're doing step 11 next week.
Yes.
On, Tuesday, March 18th. And then we're going to actually break step 12 down. We're going to do that into 2 different sessions. We're going to do them.
Yep.
And looking
I'd
forward
like to do it like this: first visit, second visit.
Nice.
That's how I want to break it down.
Cool. So we'll do first visit on March 25th, Tuesday, and then we'll do second visit on April 1st. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
I am looking forward to it.
Me too. And for also tomorrow night, we have KDP is going to be following up. We did the first part of the 4th step, and tomorrow night we're going to be doing the second part.
I love Katie. Yeah. Please tell her I said hi.
Will do.
We've been all over the planet together. Me, her, and Charlie. Man, I miss those days.
She's a firecracker, man. She's funny.
Yeah,
she's on it. Yeah, good stuff. Cool, Chris. I appreciate you, buddy. And
okay,
I'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Take care.
See you, man.
Bye-bye.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.